Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in your life when survival requires subtraction, a time when growth demands you let go. And I came to tell somebody today, you cannot step into your destiny while you're still tied to your damage. You were not created to be a dumping ground for someone else's dysfunction. You were not called to carry burdens that don't belong to you. There is a weight you are bearing that God never told you to pick up. Now hear me, toxic people don't always come with warning labels. Sometimes they come dressed in charm. Sometimes they smile in your face while slowly poisoning your peace. But if you're going to soar, if you're going to fly, you must be willing to release the hands that keep pulling you down. Because peace is not just a prayer, it is a decision, a declaration, a divine line you draw in the sand that says, no more access to my spirit, no more control over my emotions, no more renting space in my mind. You see, when you finally recognize your worth, you'll stop entertaining what insults your value. It's not arrogance, it's not bitterness, it's wisdom, and wisdom will keep you out of emotional bankruptcy. Listen to me, you are not the savior, you are not their therapist, you are not their life raft. Stop bleeding for people who wouldn't bandage you if the roles were reversed. Today, I call you into liberation. Today, I call you into clarity. Today, I call you into the life God intended for you, one where joy isn't negotiable and peace is your portion. Walk away if you have to. Cut the tie if it chokes your calling. Because the future God has for you is too powerful to be anchored by people who refuse to grow. There's a truth that many of us resist, not because it's hard to understand, but because it's hard to accept. A truth that echoes in the chambers of our spirit when we're trying to hold on to what God is trying to cut off, and that truth is this. Now that might not sound poetic, that might not get applause at first, but if you let that truth sink deep into your soul, it will free you from years of frustration, confusion, and bondage. Let me ask you something. How many of you have tried to carry people God never told you to carry? How many of you are trying to resuscitate relationships that have flatlined? How many are exhausted? Not because your purpose is too heavy, but because you're dragging dead weight. Survival, beloved, is not just about breathing. It's not just about making it to the end of the day. It's about thriving in the space God designed for you. And to get there, some things, some people, some habits have to go. We have a tendency to confuse familiarity with faithfulness. Just because someone's been with you for a long time doesn't mean they're meant to go with you into your next season. Some people are seasonal, sent for a moment, not forever. But because we are emotionally tied, we try to force them into permanent places. Some people were scaffolding, not structure. Their purpose was to help you build. But once the structure stands, the scaffolding comes down. It's not evil, it's not betrayal, it's divine design, and until you accept that, you'll keep making room for dysfunction because of shared history. But you cannot let yesterday's loyalty block tomorrow's legacy. You were created to run with vision, not limp with burdens that aren't yours. And too many of us are emotionally, spiritually, even physically depleted. Not because we're lazy, but because we're carrying people, conversations, drama, and dysfunction that God has been calling us to subtract. A plane cannot take off if it's overloaded. It can have all the potential in the world. It can have the engines, the runway, the destination, the fuel. But if the weight is too heavy, it will never lift off. You've got dreams, you've got goals, you've got divine assignments waiting for your yes. But as long as you keep trying to take everyone with you, you'll stay grounded. See, not everyone who's connected to you was sent to you. Some people attach themselves to your energy, to your resources, to your anointing, but they were not assigned to your purpose. Toxic people often don't appear toxic at first. They come with smiles, not fangs. They come with "I'm here for you," and not "I'm draining you." And before you know it, you're caught in a cycle where your spirit is slowly dying because you're feeding someone who never came to feed you back. But survival, real, healthy, God-ordained survival, requires you to take inventory of who's around you and ask the hard question, are they helping me heal, or are they keeping me hostage? Now I need you to understand something. When God begins to subtract, it hurts. It's not always obvious. It's not always what you expect. Sometimes it's friends. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's the very people you thought would be with you forever. But God is not trying to hurt you. He's trying to elevate you. He's not trying to destroy relationships. He's trying to deliver you from attachment that are not aligned with your assignment. And yes, it gets lonely in the in-between. Yes, it's painful when you feel like you're letting go of love, trust, or connection. But let me tell you this: God never removes without replacing. He never subtracts without setting you up for something greater. There is new peace on the other side of this pain. There is new clarity on the other side of this confusion. There is new joy on the other side of this journey, but only if you're willing to trust Him in the process of pruning. Sometimes the subtraction isn't cutting people off, it's putting people where they belong. Not everyone deserves front row access to your life. Some people need to be moved to the balcony. Some people need to be loved from a distance. That's not cruelty, that's clarity, that's wisdom. That's knowing that protecting your peace is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of maturity. You are not a bad person for creating space. You are not disloyal for choosing health. You are not selfish for deciding to live free. God is trying to pour new things into your life, but your hands are full. You're holding on to what He told you to release. You're praying for open doors, but you're still entertaining people who slam them shut in your face. Sometimes you have to subtract to make room for the miracle. You've been praying for peace, let go of chaos. You've been praying for love, release abuse. You've been praying for destiny, say goodbye to distraction. They don't come into your life with signs around their necks saying, "I'm here to drain you, confuse you, use you, or destroy your peace." No, they come wrapped in charm, dressed in charisma, laced in flattery, wearing the mask of friend, mentor, lover, or even family. They speak in ways that sound safe. They act in ways that seem supportive. They know exactly how to imitate concern. But their intentions, their motives, they are polluted with control, selfishness, manipulation, and emotional sabotage. And because the disguise is convincing, we welcome them in. We trust them. We confide in them. We hand over access to the most sacred parts of who we are. But somewhere down the road, things begin to shift. They start to twist your words. They begin to question your worth. They poke holes in your confidence. They shrink your dreams with backhanded compliments. They drain your energy, but never fill your spirit. And the worst part, by the time you realize what's happening, you've already begun to question yourself. You start to wonder, am I overreacting? Am I being too sensitive? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I misunderstood. But no, beloved, you didn't misunderstand. You saw their disguise starting to slip. What you felt wasn't paranoia, it was discernment. Toxic people perform. They learn the script of your heart, not to serve it, but to use it. They watch for your wounds, not to heal them, but to leverage them. They don't come to uplift, they come to infiltrate. Sometimes the distraction comes as a relationship that seems promising, but slowly robs you of your identity. Sometimes it's a friend who constantly takes but never pours back into you. Sometimes it's a mentor who wraps manipulation in the language of guidance. Toxic people are like spiritual parasites. They survive off your strength. They thrive when you're down. They are loud when you struggle, but silent when you succeed. They applaud your potential until it threatens their own comfort. And they do it so skillfully, so subtly, that by the time you feel something is off, your emotional balance has already been shaken, your peace already compromised, your purpose already delayed. But behind that mask is control. Behind that charm is a deep fear of losing influence over you. Behind that fake support is resentment and envy. You can't just look at how someone makes you feel in the moment. You have to look at what happens after they leave your presence. Do you feel more clear or more confused, more alive or more drained, more empowered or more insecure? Toxic people are experts at making you question your reality. It's called emotional gaslighting. They'll do or say something harmful, and when you bring it up, they'll twist it. They deflect, they distract. They make you feel like you're imagining the very pain they caused. But hear me, God gave you intuition for a reason. He gave you discernment for a purpose. Do not ignore the uneasiness in your spirit. That is often heaven's alarm system telling you something here is not right. Some of us keep toxic people in our lives not because we don't see the truth, but because we feel obligated. We say things like, they've been there for me, or I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I just need to be more patient. And no, sometimes loyalty becomes a trap. Sometimes compassion becomes a cage. Sometimes you're not being patient, you're being poisoned. You start to silence yourself to keep the peace. You start to shrink yourself to avoid conflict. You start to question your calling to protect their comfort, and over time you disappear. But I came to tell you, your light was not made to be dimmed to keep others comfortable. Your worth was not made to be negotiated in the presence of someone else's wounds. Your purpose is too powerful to be manipulated by someone who only shows up to consume it. It's time to unmask the influence. If you want to move into your next season, you must unmask the influence in your life. Ask God to expose every hidden agenda. Ask for clarity over every relationship. Ask for the courage to let go even if it hurts, because here's the truth, not everyone deserves access to you. Access is a privilege, not a right. And if someone's presence continually pollutes your peace, undermines your identity, and silences your spirit, it's time to withdraw their access. You don't have to make a scene. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to wait for permission. You are allowed to protect your spirit. You were not called to live in confusion. You were not designed to carry guilt that isn't yours. You were not created to be someone's emotional punching bag or spiritual hostage. So yes, toxic people often wear disguises, but you, beloved, are waking up. You're rising up. You're shedding the false. You're claiming your peace. The mask may fool the crowd, but it cannot deceive your soul forever. When your spirit is tired, don't just rest. Reevaluate. There comes a moment in every life, a crossroads that heaven watches with breathless anticipation, where we must decide whether we will stay stuck or step into the freedom that's been calling our name. Not everyone recognizes this moment when it comes. Some miss it because they're waiting on someone else to free them. Some miss it because they think time alone will heal what's broken. And some miss it because they confuse survival with freedom, thinking that just because they're breathing, they're living. A decision to rise when everything around you tells you to shrink. A decision to speak when fear whispers, stay silent. A decision to let go of the past when it has become your prison. Too many people are waiting for deliverance to fall from the sky like lightning, but freedom doesn't come to the passive. It comes to the intentional. It comes to those who decide, enough is enough. This cycle ends with me. This weight will not own me. This pain will not define me. There are people right now who are bound, not because they don't have the strength, but because they haven't made the choice. They've rehearsed the trauma, but they haven't released it. They've memorized the offense, but they haven't moved on. And every day that you choose to carry what you should have dropped, you delay your destiny. Freedom isn't just about walking out of the cage, it's about walking away from the chains in your mind. There are some people who have been out of the situation for years, but the situation is still in them. They escaped the abuse, but not the shame. They left the relationship, but not the resentment. They quit the job, but they still carry the fear. And here's the truth. Until you decide to drop the emotional weight, your spirit will still be bound even if your feet are free. Jesus didn't come just to give you heaven after death. He came to give you freedom in life, abundant life, healed life, whole life. But wholeness will never chase you down. You've got to choose it. You've got to want it more than you want to be right. More than you want revenge, more than you want validation. The reason many never walk into freedom is because they've made a home out of pain. They've learned to function in dysfunction. They've grown comfortable in chaos. So when peace knocks on the door, it feels unfamiliar and they retreat back to what they've always known. But listen to me, just because pain is familiar doesn't mean it's safe. And just because healing is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. You cannot heal what you still protect. You cannot be free from what you still defend. And as long as you keep giving your wounds the final say, you are choosing bondage. You might say, but they hurt me. Yes, they did. They betrayed me. Yes, they did. I didn't deserve that. No, you didn't. But now the choice is yours. You can let that moment define you, or you can decide, this will not be the end of my story, and I know it's not easy. I know it's not fair. I know the scars are deep and the nights are long. But if you truly want freedom, you cannot carry unforgiveness in one hand and breakthrough in the other. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the offense, it extracts its power from your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, it means releasing the right to retaliate, so you can recover your joy. It's easy to point fingers at your parents, at your ex, at the system, at life, at God. And maybe you're right. Maybe you were abandoned, rejected, overlooked, underestimated. But the question is not who broke you, the question is, are you willing to be whole? At some point, the blame must end and the building must begin. And it begins with a decision to rebuild your life, a decision to rediscover your voice, a decision to recover your purpose, a decision to reclaim your power. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of this decision. One who doesn't flinch when they hear the name. One who doesn't replay the conversation in their head every night. One who walks in boldness, not bitterness. Freedom doesn't show up with fanfare. It shows up with choice. A simple, sacred, stubborn decision. I will not stay here. I will not be bound by what happened. I will not live the rest of my life stuck in what they did, what I lost, or who walked away. Love is a beautiful thing, but it can also be a burden when it's not balanced. It's not always soft and simple. Sometimes love means long talks, warm hugs, open doors, but sometimes love means stepping back. Love means saying less. Love means letting go. We've been taught that love always draws near, always holds close, always makes space. But the truth is not every connection is meant to stay close forever, and not every heart you care about should have the same level of access to yours, because love without boundaries will bleed you dry. Love without wisdom will trap you in cycles of disappointment. Love without discernment will keep you tied to people who don't respect your peace, your time, or your calling. You can love them. Yes, you can pray for them. You can even want the best for them and still decide, I can't keep letting you this close to my heart. Love is powerful, but it's not permission for abuse. It's not a license for disrespect. It's not a pass for people to drain your spirit and never pour back into your soul. Some of us confuse love with loyalty to dysfunction. We hold on to people just because we've known them for years. We tolerate mistreatment because we share bloodlines. We endure manipulation because they're family, or they've been there for me before, or they don't have anyone else. You can be grateful for what someone was in one season and still admit that they can't go with you into the next. Let's get one thing straight. Loving someone from a distance doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop wishing them well. It doesn't mean you speak evil over them or plot their downfall. It means you've taken inventory of your spirit and realized, every time I get too close, I lose my peace. Every time I engage too deeply, I feel smaller. Every time I reach out, I end up wounded. And so you love them, but you do it differently. You love them without putting your heart on the line. You love them without picking up their burdens as if they were your own. You love them, but you no longer make yourself sick trying to save them. Setting boundaries doesn't make you heartless. It makes you healthy. It means you're mature enough to say, I can't control what you do, but I can control how close I allow you to get. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to stop explaining. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that always end in chaos. Some people only know how to function in dysfunction, and the closer you are, the more likely they are to pull you into their storm. But when you step back, when you love from a distance, you give them the space they need to face themselves. Let them find their own way. Let them learn their own lessons. Let them take responsibility for their own healing. You are not the savior. You are not the fixer. You are not the one who has to bleed so they can feel whole. That's not love, that's codependence. That's not sacrifice. That's self-erasure. True love doesn't demand you abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Real love says, I will not enable your brokenness by neglecting my own healing. There's this idea in the church and in culture that love must always be sacrificial, that we must keep people close no matter what, but God is a God of order. He's a God of peace. And He is not glorified when we're constantly entangled in drama and dysfunction under the name of unconditional love. Yes, we are called to love, but we are also called to be wise. Scripture says, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. You can't guard what you constantly expose. You can't protect what you refuse to prioritize. Even Jesus, full of grace and truth, distanced himself from people who did not believe, did not honor, or did not receive. He loved them, but he did not keep everyone close. There is strength in stepping back. There is wisdom in walking away. There is healing in choosing yourself, your growth, your peace, even while your heart still beats with compassion for someone else. There is a quiet strength that doesn't shout, doesn't shake, doesn't show off. It doesn't demand attention, and it doesn't depend on applause. It's not always visible to others, but when you have it, you know. It's like still waters beneath your skin. It's a holy hush in a noisy world. It's called peace, and it's not just a feeling, it's a birthright. You were born for more than chaos. You were created for more than constant conflict. Peace isn't something you have to earn. It's not something you have to hustle for. Peace isn't for the chosen few, it's for you, but so many of us have forgotten that. Life has convinced us that anxiety is normal, that stress is success, that worry is wisdom. We've adapted to sleepless nights and anxious hearts like it's just the way things are. But let me remind you of a truth the world tries to bury under bills and deadlines and heartbreaks and news cycles. You were never meant to live under the constant tension of torment. You were never meant to spend your life dodging emotional landmines, tiptoeing around other people's dysfunction, or managing the fallout of someone else's unhealed wounds. The fact that peace is your birthright doesn't mean it won't be challenged. Peace is so precious that the enemy of your soul fights hard to steal it. That's why every day you're under attack, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. The war isn't always over your finances, your job, your relationships. The real war is over your peace. Because when the enemy has your peace, he can have everything else. When your peace is gone, your mind races, your heart shuts down. Your decisions become impulsive, your spirit becomes vulnerable. Too many of us think peace means the absence of conflict. We think we'll have peace when the kids behave, when the bills are paid, when we get the job, when they apologize, when life finally stops throwing punches. It's not based on what's going on around you, it's based on what's going on within you. You can be surrounded by chaos and still walk in peace. You can be in a storm and not let the storm get in you. You can be pressed on every side, but not crushed, because your peace doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, and when you understand that, you stop waiting for peace to show up. You stop asking for permission to rest. You stop needing circumstances to shift, and you start walking in authority, knowing that peace is your portion. You carry it, you release it, you protect it, because it's not optional, it's yours. You don't have to settle for survival. Many people have learned how to survive, but they've never learned how to be at peace. They know how to juggle 1,000 things. They know how to push through pain. They know how to pretend like they're okay. But when the house is quiet and the world is still, they can't sleep, they can't breathe, they can't rest, because their soul is tired, their spirit is heavy, their mind is loud, and somewhere along the way they started believing that this was normal, that life is just hard, that rest is a reward, not a rhythm, that anxiety is just a part of adulthood, that worry is just wisdom in disguise. You were not born to grind until you collapse. You were not created to spend your life anxious and afraid. You are not designed to live in constant unrest. There is a place for you, a quiet place, a strong place, a holy place, where you can breathe again. That place is called peace. Peace is yours, but you've got to protect it. You can't keep giving unlimited access to people who don't know how to respect your peace. You can't keep saying yes to everything and everyone while your spirit is screaming for silence. Boundaries on your time, boundaries on your energy, boundaries on your conversations, Boundaries on what you watch, what you listen to, who you allow to speak into your life. You can't keep allowing toxic voices to invade your holy place and wonder why you can't hear God clearly. You can't keep entertaining confusion and expect clarity to stay, because the same God who formed the heavens and earth, the same God who speaks to storms and calms them with one word, he lives in you. And he said, "My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you." There comes a time when you have to take a long, honest look at your heart and whisper the truth to yourself. I'm carrying too much that was never mine to carry. You've been running on empty, stretched thin, weighed down by other people's problems, caught in cycles of saving people who never asked you to bleed, and now you're tired because you've mistaken compassion for calling. You've confused being available with being responsible. You've made yourself the emergency contact in other people's lives when God never assigned you to be their savior. So if you're feeling burdened by everyone else's brokenness, maybe it's time to stop asking, "What else can I do?" and start asking, "What have I taken on that doesn't belong to me?" Some of us were taught from a young age that love means rescuing, that love means fixing, that love means diving into deep waters for people who refuse to learn how to swim. You saw people drowning in their own mess, and you jumped in thinking you could save them. You sacrificed your sleep. You sacrificed your sanity. You sacrificed your dreams, and still they sank deeper. It's not love to drown trying to keep someone else afloat. It's not loyalty to lose yourself in someone else's storm. It's not holy to keep offering your strength where it's not honored or even received. And some of us have become so addicted to being needed, we don't know who we are unless we're fixing someone. Trying to be everyone's answer will bankrupt your peace, because every time someone calls, you pick up. Every time someone cries, you run. Every time someone fails, you blame yourself. You don't have the power to heal a heart. You don't have the authority to save a soul. You don't have the capacity to carry every cross. And when you keep trying to save people in your own strength, you're not just exhausting yourself, you're interrupting divine order. Because as long as you keep standing in the gap trying to fix, trying to patch, trying to shield them from the consequences, you're not helping them, you're delaying them. You're keeping them from growth. You're keeping them from accountability. You're keeping them from their moment of surrender. Pain has a purpose. Consequences are teachers, and struggle often becomes the sacred ground where transformation begins. But they won't learn if you keep rescuing them. They won't grow if you keep shielding them. They won't rise if you keep lifting them every time they fall, because sometimes people have to reach rock bottom before they find the rock at the bottom. Now let's talk about guilt, because that's what's keeping you stuck. That nagging voice that says, if I don't do it, who will? If I let go, they'll fall apart. If I say no, I'm being selfish. You are not a bad person for creating boundaries. You are not unloving for protecting your peace. You are not disobedient for walking away from something that's draining your soul. You are wise, you are healthy, you are obedient. Release the guilt, release the pressure. Release the illusion that it all depends on you. Focus on what you're actually called to do. You were not called to be a savior. You were called to be a vessel. That means you pour, but you don't deplete. You love, but you don't lose yourself. You show up, but you also rest. God never asked you to be everything for everyone. He asked you to be faithful, not flawless, not infinite, not all-powerful. You gave up the role of rescuer. You laid down the weight of outcomes. You stopped performing for approval. You decided that your health, your joy, and your purpose matter too. There is a moment in every person's life, a quiet, sacred moment when something clicks. Not because someone else changed, not because life got easier, but because you finally saw yourself clearly. You finally looked in the mirror and realized, I've been staying where I no longer belong. I've been settling for what doesn't serve me. I've been tolerating what keeps breaking me, and I deserve more. That moment is the beginning of freedom. It's not loud. It doesn't always come with fanfare or a final argument or some grand announcement. Sometimes it just comes with a sigh, a stillness, a soul, deep realization, But here's the thing about walking away: it requires value. It requires you to see yourself as worthy of peace, worthy of love, worthy of joy, worthy of something more. It requires you to value yourself enough to stop choosing people, places, and patterns that choose to dishonor your worth. Some of us have stayed too long in relationships that drained us, not because we didn't know we should leave, but because we didn't believe we were allowed to. We were taught that endurance equals loyalty, that love is proven by how much pain you're willing to tolerate, that leaving makes you the bad guy, that walking away is quitting. You don't have to stay just to prove you're loyal. You don't have to shrink to make others feel comfortable. You don't have to twist yourself into someone unrecognizable to maintain peace that isn't even real. You can love people and still leave the situation. You can forgive them and still walk away. You can care about someone and still recognize that their presence is poison to your purpose. Just because something hurt doesn't mean it's holy. Some of us have mistaken pain for purpose. We think, if I'm suffering, it must be because I'm strong. If it hurts, maybe I'm growing. If it's hard, I'll just keep pushing. But strength is not measured by how long you can endure mistreatment. Growth is not proven by how many times you let them break your heart, and commitment is not glorified when it comes at the cost of your own soul. Yes, growth stretches you, but it doesn't destroy you. Yes, love costs something, but it should never cost everything. Yes, purpose comes with pressure, but not at the expense of your peace. This isn't about blame, this is about awareness. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you realize you've been participating in your own mistreatment, you start to understand the power of walking away. When you walk away, you're not just leaving behind a person or a place, you're leaving behind the version of yourself that thought you had to stay. They'll call you dramatic. They'll say you gave up. They'll paint you as the villain in the story they tell themselves. But let them talk, because walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It takes courage to leave familiar dysfunction. It takes faith to step into the unknown. It takes strength to break your own heart in order to save your soul. You've tried, you've prayed, you've cried, you've stayed up late and given second chances and bent yourself backwards to make it work. But now it's time to choose you. Time to believe that your healing is more important than their comfort. Time to stop asking permission to walk away from what's been killing you. You are worthy of more. You are worthy of a life that feels like peace. You are worthy of love that doesn't confuse you. You are worthy of joy that doesn't come with conditions. You are worthy of relationships that lift you, not drain you. But until you value yourself, you'll keep settling for scraps. You'll keep accepting apologies without changed behavior. You'll keep holding space for people who only bring chaos. So if the room demands that you betray your identity, walk away. If the relationship requires that you lose your voice, walk away. If the atmosphere feels like constant anxiety, not alignment, walk away. So take the first step. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need a map for every mile. You just need to trust that the God who gave you the strength to leave will also provide the grace to rebuild. There's a difference between growing older and growing wiser. Time may age the body, but it does not guarantee the development of the soul. Life doesn't mature you simply because you've lived through it. It matures you when you learn from it. Because real maturity has nothing to do with your resume, your titles, your degrees, or how well you carry a conversation in public. Emotional maturity is about how you handle what people don't see. It's about how you respond when you're disrespected, disappointed, overlooked, or rejected. It's about how you steward your emotions without letting them rule you. Wisdom is what transforms emotional reactions into spiritual responses. Wisdom is what stops you from sending the text you'll regret. Wisdom is what holds your tongue when your flesh wants revenge. Wisdom is what whispers, peace is better than proving your point. It is wisdom that teaches you not everything deserves your energy, not every conflict requires your presence, and not every offense is worth your peace. Let's talk truth. Feelings are real, but they're not always reliable. You can feel something strongly and still be completely off course. You can feel offended, and yet the offense wasn't intentional. You can feel attacked when someone is simply speaking truth. You can feel hurt by correction and miss the gift inside the discomfort. Emotional maturity doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being led by your feelings. You recognize them, honor them, and then ask, what is wisdom telling me to do with this? Because emotion without wisdom turns into chaos. It makes you reactive instead of responsive. It has you starting wars when you should be seeking peace. It pushes people away when what you really need is healing. And it tricks you into thinking that temporary satisfaction yelling, clapping back, shutting down will solve long-term wounds, but wisdom sees deeper. Wisdom pauses and examines the root. Wisdom says, this reaction is familiar, but is it fruitful? Wisdom leads you to sit with your feelings, not broadcast them. It leads you to pray before you post, think before you reply, breathe before you burn another bridge. There's a lie that emotional maturity means you're unshakable, that nothing touches you, that you move through life unaffected. But that's not maturity, that's suppression. And suppression is not healing. True emotional maturity doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel fully, but you don't fold. You're not a slave to your sadness. You're not driven by your anger. You're not held hostage by your trauma. You've done the work. You've cried the tears. You've confronted the shadows. You've broken cycles and buried old lies. And now you stand, not because you haven't been hit, but because you've learned how to heal. You recognize when your wounds are talking, and you don't let them speak for you. You recognize when your triggers are active, and you don't turn them into torches that burn down every relationship. You recognize when your past is echoing into your present, and you quiet it with truth, not tantrums. Wisdom teaches you how to stay grounded when emotions try to sweep you away. It teaches you how to wait when everything inside you screams, react now. It teaches you how to discern the voice of your inner child from the voice of your higher self. And that discernment is everything. As wisdom grows, you learn that every battle isn't yours. You learn that some people thrive off chaos and bait you into drama just to feed their own dysfunction. You learn that you can have the last word and choose not to use it. You learn that silence is sometimes the most powerful response you can give. You don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't chase validation from those who never saw your value to begin with. You don't entertain conversations that make you shrink, self-doubt, or sabotage your serenity. You choose your battles. You protect your energy. You make room for joy, and you no longer allow your emotions to be hijacked by people who haven't earned the right to influence your heart. You don't get wisdom from reading alone. You don't get it from podcasts, quotes, or surface-level conversations. You get it from life, from sitting in the tension, from holding space for your own complexity, from navigating betrayal, loss, shame, and still choosing to show up with grace. Wisdom grows where ego dies. Wisdom grows in the moments when you say, I was wrong. It grows when you choose to listen instead of defend. It grows when you say, I forgive, even when you never got the apology. This is where the deep work happens. Where transformation takes root, where wounds become wisdom, where experiences become insight, where emotional scars become sacred reminders that you've grown. Emotional maturity doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, sometimes messy, often humbling, but always worth it. You'll stop reacting to everything. You'll stop chasing what depletes you. You'll stop begging to be chosen by people who aren't qualified to hold your heart. Because wisdom gives you vision, wisdom gives you boundaries, wisdom gives you peace, and from that wisdom, a new you rises, no longer held hostage by emotional turmoil, but empowered by inner truth.